Welcome to Rider Sports Corner, and this is my rant. First things up, the 2003 Bartman baseball. Yes, Steve Bartman, that's the guy I'm talking about. You know, the one where Moises Alou in left field goes up for the ball in foul territory and he puts his hand out? Yeah, well anyway, that ball was blown up this week on the streets of Chicago. It doesn't matter, it's not going to get you anything except for a bunch of pieces of baseball. It's not going to get you guys your World Series. You guys have to make the playoffs, then outplay everybody in the playoffs before you can host up that trophy. I don't really care about you guys. You guys aren't going anywhere. You guys aren't going to the World Series. And if, quite frankly, I'm not even sure if you guys are going to make the playoffs with that giant payroll that you guys are spending. Speaking about payroll, Alex Rodriguez, guess what? Making $28 million this year. Florida Marlins spending $21.8 million on 33 players. That's 25 guys on the main roster and another 8 that they're paying on the disabled list. I can't believe it. Neither can anybody else, and that's why they're talking about it all the time. Who cares about Alex Rodriguez? It doesn't matter. You're paying that much money for the best player in baseball, have him go out there and produce and not talk about $28 million. And now I send it off to Steph Chartel.
This is the Rider Sports Corner segment of Spotlight. I'm your host, Steph Chartel. This week's coverage features the baseball team and their series against Marist. Let's take a look. On Saturday, the guys engaged in a doubleheader with Marist, a team who prior to this past weekend had won the series for 9 times in the past 11 seasons. The Bronx were able to prevent this weekend series from becoming the 10th win for the Red Foxes. With junior Mike Petrowski on the mound at noon and junior Jimmer Kennedy later at 3, the Bronx only gave up a collaborative 14 hits in both games. In the first game, top of the 9th, victory was close at hand for Marist, with the score 5-2. However, Riders stepped up their game, scoring 4 runs on 4 hits, overpowering the Red Foxes 6-5. The score remained as sophomore Chris Brown stepped in for Petrowski and wrapped up the game with the final 2 outs. As mentioned, Jimmer Kennedy opened the 3 o'clock game on Saturday and pitched 6 innings, allowing only 1 run, a solid game and his 3rd win this season. Riders' offense opened and finished strong as well. 1 run was scored in the 3rd inning, followed by 2 more in the 4th. Junior Sean Olson singled in the 4th and later doubled in the 6th, ultimately scoring to make the final score in favor of the Bronx, 4-1. Unfortunately for the Bronx, sweeping the series was not in the stars. Scores were flipped come Sunday as they lost to Marist 5-1. The Bronx failed to demonstrate their ability to hit Sunday afternoon. However, the mound remained on fire. Freshman Mike Thomas pitched 7 innings, striking out 7. Although they were unable to win all 3 games, the men are proud of their Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference Series win, and so are we. Stay tuned for next week's edition of Spotlight, where we will cover the women's tennis team. Until then, I'm Steph Chartel. Now, to the M&M Talk with Sean Pansier.
Stats. Staying with basketball, and moving on to the NBA, where you get paid to play. Who's this year's MVP so far?
I'm going to go with someone a little different that no one really talks about. I'm going to have to say LeBron James. I definitely think, he's leading the NBA in scoring. He has about a 70% free throw percentage. He plays great. He's pretty good on defense. Has about 6 rebounds a game average. So I definitely can't say anything bad about him. I definitely think that, I know he's not talked about as much as you hear the Kobe Bryants and stuff like that, but I definitely think that he should be put in the limelight for it and be in the running.
I think LeBron James is going to be in the running, and he does have great stats. But I think someone that people are kind of, he's a little bit under the radar. Amar'e Stoudemire from Phoenix. Yeah, he's averaging 25 points a game, 9 rebounds, and he's shooting over 58% field goal percentage. And I think that's got to be something to look into. Do I think he's going to actually get the MVP? No. Because I actually think LeBron James is going to get it, and he said it. But I think that's someone that you got to look out for, and the season's not over yet.
Wow. No love for Chris Paul, guys. No?
Not right
no
now.
love.
Not,
okay.
not yet.
All right.
Not
all
yet.
right.
Not yet.
Okay, then. All right. Best team in the NBA, then.
I'm going to have to go with the Celtics. I know it's an obvious choice, but they just came out of nowhere. They made some great selections for their starting roster, and they're just playing so well right now. I have no complaints. They're just dominating the conference, and I definitely see them going to the finals. I don't see a team that can beat them. So I'm definitely have to go with the Celtics.
Mike?
Got to go with the Celtics. He said it all right there. Celtics.
I should start off with him next time. We're going to roll on this time. Dark horse in the playoffs, then.
Dark horse. I was going to say New Orleans and Chris Paul. If Chris Paul and David West, if they have big games, they're going to go far. And I actually think that they're going to make it to the finals and play Boston.
Wow. Okay. And
I'm actually going to have to go a little differently. I know they're probably going to make the playoffs, but I was going to say Cleveland. I think Cleveland's going to do very well in the playoffs, and I think they're going to make a long run for it. They may not make it to the finals, but I definitely think they're going to be a team to watch out for.
Okay, well, we heard Mike's prediction for the finals. What two teams play in the finals for you then?
The two teams that I selected were Boston and San Antonio.
Okay, all right. Very, very good picks on that. I'm going to have to go with Mike on this one, only because he mentioned the Amari Stoudemire, excuse me. He's probably one of the best. I love him, even though I would have picked Chris Paul for the MVP, so you get the win on that. And moving on to baseball, yesterday being opening day, what did you guys think about it?
I thought it was great. You know, the fans enjoy it. It's America's pastime. Everybody loves it. I don't watch too much baseball, but I do know there's a lot of history behind it. And one of the things that I was looking for was I want to see how the Phillies would start out this year, because after their great run at the end of last year, you know, they did make it to the playoffs, and it did end short. But I was very interested to see what would happen. And, you know, they did play hard, and unfortunately, they did lose to the Washington Nationals, but I definitely think that opening day was a great thing, and everybody's excited to see what the season brings.
Okay.
Like Mark said, everybody's excited for opening day, all baseball fans everywhere. Getting ready for the start of a new season. And there were I thought there were a lot of good games, and there should be a lot more coming up soon.
Okay. Any example of a good game? You talked about that.
Yeah, I thought the Mets played really well, beating the Marlins 7-2. Also, Dodgers going 5-0 against Giants. I thought that was a good one.
Wow, all right. And yours?
I'm going to have to just touch on the Phillies game again, only because when I was watching it, you know, Phillies were down by 2, and Rollins hit that 2-run shot to tie the game, and that just kept me anticipating what the end could bring. So I definitely think that was a game that kept me on the edge of my seat. So I'm looking forward to see what they can continue to do.
No love for Washington there with their 2 wins.
No.
2-0 so far.
As early
season's early. Season's early. Okay, all right,
now.
guys. So then, if the season's early, let's look at it a little bit later. AL, NL. Who do you see in the playoffs for those? More like the World Series. Let's go with that.
World Series. I'm going to have to say, I definitely think that the Mets, I would like to see the Mets go this year. I think that they have the team this year, and I know they always make it every year, and then they struggle. But I definitely think that I would like to see them go. As far as the American League, I really don't have a favorite team right now. It's kind of hard for me to tell, but I'm going to stay with the Mets for the National League.
Okay.
American League, obviously you can't overlook Boston ever, and you can't overlook New York either. But I think actually Detroit Tigers, they're going to bounce back a little bit this year, and they're going to push in the AL, but I think it's going to be Boston. And NL, like Mark said, the Mets, they're looking really good this year. Also, you can't count out the Phillies, but who knows what's going to happen to them once they get to the playoffs. But I actually really like the Dodgers now that they got Joe Torre, because I think Joe Torre he's just so mad about the whole New York situation. He's gonna get that team into shape. And I think they're going to surprise a lot of people this year.
Wow. All right. Well, as we leave baseball, I am going to go with Mark on that, making it 2-2 for both of you right now, only because Mark picked my Mets. I can't. And I know you did too, but you mentioned the Phillies, and I'm not really feeling that. I'm sorry. Moving on to the NFL, kind of like, just to throw that in there, it's been a lot of free agency. The draft is coming up. Rumor has it that Adam Pac-Man Jones is going to be back in the NFL, possibly with the Cowboys. Do you think that would be a good idea for the Cowboys, or do you think it would be a bad idea if they picked them?
I think that's a bad idea, only because, the trouble that he's brought to the Tennessee Titans, the numerous times that they had to suspend him from the season. I mean, you can't. It's basically, it reminds me of a T.O. situation. I mean, what he did to the 49ers at the end of their seasons, at the end of his career there, and then when he went to the Eagles, he did hurt them too, in my opinion. And I think Pac-Man Jones could do the very same thing to the Cowboys if they decide to go that route. And I think the Cowboys really need to focus right now because they seem to be getting to the playoffs, but they can't finish out. So I definitely would not agree with picking them up. I think that's a big mistake.
Okay, Mike?
From the game's perspective, I think it would be a good idea because they do need help in their secondary, and he is a good player even though he's a year removed from the game. But like Mark said, he's going to come with a lot of baggage, and honestly, I don't think Dallas can handle any more baggage. They already got T.O., and he's a known troublemaker. Tank Johnson they picked up in midseason, and with all his troubles in the past. So From the game's perspective, yes, I think he will be a benefit to that team, but otherwise, it's a bad move.
Okay. And moving on to another troublemaker, Chad Johnson. He wants out of Cincinnati. Is there any suitors that you guys see for him?
I don't really see any suitors per se. I think there will be some teams that go after him, even though he also has caused some trouble for the Bengals. One team that I think might go for him just to replace an old wide receiver is the St. Louis Rams. I think they might find him as a suit to take Torrey Holt's spot because Torrey Holt is getting older now. I definitely think they're going to start looking for someone new, someone fresh for the wide receiver core. And, Chad Johnson's not really young, but he is compared to Torrey Holt, and I think Torrey Holt's getting ready to end his career, rightfully so. He's done a great job. So I definitely say the St. Louis Rams. I'd like to see them go for him.
Okay.
Well, I personally don't think Chad Johnson's going anywhere this year, but next year I think he's on the move. There's actually been a lot of talks about the Redskins trying to pick Johnson up. I know they try to get a receiver like every year, but apparently there's been talks like Dan Snyder, he wants to try and get him. But also, I really think the Eagles are going to make a big push for him. I mean, we saw what they tried to get Randy Moss, but he just wanted to stay in New England. They obviously pushed hard for Fitzgerald, and that wasn't happening. And there's still rumors that they're trying to get Roy Williams. So I think that they're actually going to really try and push for it.
Do you honestly think, though, that after what T.O. has done to the Eagles, that they'll still push for someone like that?
Yes, they will, because I think the way they're acting in free agency right now, they're gearing up for another Super Bowl run, like the Patriots did the year before, bringing in Randy Moss and Adalius Thomas by picking up Asante Samuel and Chris Clemens if he's what he's supposed to be. And they've tried to get another big name receiver, and I feel like if they have him for a year or two, it doesn't matter as long as they get him to the Super Bowl.
Well, my problem with that is, though, if they pick him up, and you got to look also at the long run. They may be prepping for the Super Bowl, but if he comes in and he starts doing the stuff that T.O. did, and McNabb had a big problem with that, and that was part of the reason why I think he suffered a little bit when he played with him in his stats-wise. But you got to realize, too, that if Chad Johnson brings what T.O. brought to the table, off the field as well as onto the field, then you could have a problem with that, too. So I personally don't think that's smart just from experience.
Well, if you're talking about experience, then I would say that it would be a good move because they've already dealt with T.O. and obviously that blew up in their face. And if something like this is going to happen with Chad Johnson, they're going to know what to do. They're not going to wait around. They're just going to get rid of him, drop him, trade him, whatever.
But would you want to offer him all that money and then drop him because he's going to cause problems?
McNabb's been clamoring for a big name receiver. You got to get what you can take.
I like Reggie Brown personally.
You do? I like him too.
Yeah.
All right, guys, one last topic to talk about. Julius Jones is signed by Seattle. Is this the end of Sean Alexander's career? Madden cover at one time. Do you guys see him going off into the sunset, retiring, maybe Hall of Fame, maybe not?
I definitely think this is the Seahawks' way of sort of slowly taking Sean out of the system, only because, he's done so many great things for that team for a long time. But after watching him last season, I just don't see, he doesn't have that skill that he used to have, and he is getting older, and after his injuries, I think he's getting worn down. So I think this is their way. They're probably going to do a lot of switching the first year. They'll probably rotate backs. Sean Alexander might be, an up-the-middle type back while they use Julius Jones for the outside because that's what he's best at. But I definitely think that this is the beginning of sending Sean Alexander maybe into retirement. I don't think if Sean Alexander leaves, if he's not ready to retire, he may move on. However, he may want to end in a Seahawks uniform. So I definitely think that, after this, he may retire after the switch.
I don't see Alexander being in Seattle after the draft. I think they're going to make a move. In free agency, they already picked up Julius Jones. They picked up T.J. Duckett, which, he's not the best of running backs, but I think he's a capable backup. And they already have Maurice Morris, who I thought, when Alexander was hurt, he didn't do so bad. But I don't see him making it past the draft. And I think he will sign somewhere else because I don't think he's going to want to retire yet. And there's still a couple teams that could use a veteran running back.
Okay, well, that's everything. I'm actually going to go with Mark on this one, and I'm going to have to take back the M&Ms. You want to take one for the last shot, or no?
I'll take one for the road.
You want it. Take one for the road, please
Thank
do.
you.
Mark, this is
For
yours.
the road.
I had to go with it. You had the Torrey Holt. He was one of my favorite players growing up, and now to hear about him getting older kind of hurts a little bit, but I have to face the truth at some point. So if anything other Any other notes you guys want to talk about real quick?
That's about it.
That's it
Looking
for you
forward to
guys.
the football season already.
Okay, he's got
Baseball's
the M&Ms in
first.
his mouth. Baseball's first. All right, this has been the M&M segment of the Rider Sports Corner.